So this is a good like follow-up to our NFTs conversation, and this is a time where we get to
NFTs
do
are like blowing up now apparently too, and it's just people are spending absurd amount of money on them. Like why? It's such a niche, tiny little thing that I
well like
yeah
people who are better at explaining these things than I am can have explained on the internet and on YouTube especially like the Dutch tulip thing that happened in the 1300s and what happens with these like rushes and panics, whatever in economics more broadly when not to spray too off of this, but basically people get obsessed with a commodity and then they
and they
overvalue the
overvalue
product.
it. Yeah.
And then that it's
Like
not
tulips.
like whereas usual supply demand economics is like, oh, this thing is supposed to cost this because of like all the market factors, like competition and how much it actually took to get
Supply
there and
side
them
Jesus.
bringing the like cost down, all that stuff. But no, this is an overvalued asset. It's not worth as much as it should be. Eventually that's going to burst. And the people who are over invested in it are going to suffer and lose a lot of money as a result. Um, but like for now, NFTs are a lot like Bitcoin, where like there's a
Yeah.
lot of Bitcoin in like 2013, 14. There's a lot of promise, and arguably you could say this today too. There's a lot of promise about it where it can change. There's a lot of people with a lot of money who are getting into the hype, and so you're seeing a lot of advertisements and
Mm-hmm.
marketing for it. But ultimately, its real life uses and applications are far from happening because people are just slow to adopt to things that aren't measurably nice for them. And so when people are barely using things, you have to look at a lot of the consequences, which brings the fact that NFTs, to kind of an addendum to what we said in the video, it requires really powerful computers that take a lot of
Yes.
electricity. Something that's really bad for the environment. Something that a
Hence
band that is
Bitcoin. Yeah.
something that a band that has talked a lot about environmental protection, such as Gorillaz, should probably not want to do. However,
However,
because speaking of feeling old, last week marks the 20th anniversary of the self-titled Gorillaz album. Gorillaz are going to be releasing a lot of, anniversary reissue
yeah.
things. One of them being relevant to the NFT conversation, working with Super Plastic to sell like NFT versions of, I guess, like the Gorillaz characters or something, which is definitely something that is not only against like the era of like Plastic Beach and the whole
Yeah,
like
exactly.
wasting of all these things. Add the
That's the,
super irony that like
that's it. Hence the whole fucking album.
yeah, at like yeah, like I'm not saying it's hypocritical for Gorillaz to do a collaboration with Super Plastic to do like
Yeah, yeah.
figures because like they're cartoon characters. That's like going to be the marketing aspect of it. That's going to be what they do. But you to do it as an NFT, I mean, maybe you're using less plastic, but the cost of doing all these calculations for NFT is so bad for the environment at a time when we don't have a renewable energy like green grid. So it's just like the pros, there are no pros and there are a lot of cons. So hopefully Gorillaz like listens to fans who are saying that this is not a good idea to just like kind of jump into, even though a lot of bands, we talked about Kings of Leon kind of kicking it off earlier this month, but a lot of bands are really getting into NFTs as a way that they can make money. And that's what we saw. It's like probably the best case scenario out of this that cuts out a lot of middle people. And it's a relatively simple way for like a band to give something that doesn't cost a lot to them and make a lot of money off of it from like rich assholes who get into NFTs. The thing is like regular people don't use NFTs. A lot of regular music fans aren't using NFTs or even using like cryptocurrencies,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's so niche right now that cool, it's a great way to get a lot of money. And maybe a lot of these bands are starving for money, probably not Gorillaz, but it's kind of a thing we want to say, let's not do this, please.
Yeah, let's chill a little bit.